Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Jane Pulling with the League of Women Voters of the Charleston area, and I'm the moderator for tonight's forum. Thank you for coming tonight to hear from the candidates for the Charleston County Consolidated School Board. The League of Women Voters, as you may know, is a grassroots, non-partisan organization made up of women and men from all political backgrounds. We would also like to take the opportunity to thank and recognize our nonpartisan co-sponsor for tonight's meeting, and that is the Charleston branch of the American Association of University Women. It is the sincere hope of the forum's co-sponsors this evening that the evening will provide you with useful information on candidates' positions on critical issues of concern to citizens so that you may cast informed votes on November the 6th. We'd also like to recognize and thank the City of North Charleston for making council chamber available for this forum, and Ryan Johnson, who is recording the forum for us and streaming it on the internet. Our thanks go as well to Comcast for broadcasting the forum this evening. Every Charleston resident is represented by the 9 members of the Charleston County Consolidated School District Board, which is elected at large with residency requirements. On November the 6th, all voters will be electing representatives from 3 areas: downtown, which has 1 seat open, North Charleston with 2 seats open, and West Ashley with 2 seats open. Incumbent and school board chairman Chris Frazier is unopposed for a 2-year seat in West Ashley. Consequently, he is not participating in the forum tonight, but is available to talk with anyone who is interested in talking with him after the forum. Matisse LeCue, candidate for the North Charleston seat, was unable to attend this evening due to a previously scheduled conference of the National Parks and Recreation Association. That meeting was scheduled in California, and she is attending in her role as Commissioner for Charleston County Parks and Recreation. We have invited all candidates who are running for Charleston County Consolidated School Board seats, including those who are actively campaigning write-in candidates for the November 6th election. Please note that all 5 candidates for the downtown seat are running as write-in candidates. And now a couple of statements. Unauthorized taping is not permitted, and any recording of this forum must be shown in its entirety. Also, if you have not already done so, please turn your cell phones to silent. No bings, no beeps, no 1812 overtures. My role tonight is to keep the dialogue going and ensure that all candidates adhere to a strict timeline. Think of me as Martha Raddatz times 5. Because there are so many of you, we will really have to be strict about our time requirements. To begin with, all candidates will be called on alphabetically by district, which is how they're seated, for an introductory remark of 90 seconds or less. We will then ask questions which you, the audience, have submitted. Each candidate will have the opportunity to lead the response to those questions once in our forum. The first respondent will have 60 seconds in which to respond. All other respondents will have 30 seconds in which to respond. Should you wish to submit a question, volunteers are located around the room, and all you have to do is raise your hand and they will bring you a note card and a pen, and you can submit that question. Our questions will be sorted by members of the sponsoring organizations. Our sorters are over here, and they will be sorted for clarity and to avoid duplication. Finally, if we do things right, and I'm a tough enough taskmaster, each candidate should have 60 seconds for a closing statement. And closing statements will be presented in reverse order from the opening statements. To ensure that all candidates have enough time and a fair and equal amount of time to respond to questions, we are asking you to please hold any applause or any comments until the end of the forum. Okay. We will now begin with opening statements for which each candidate has 90 seconds. Candidates, would you please state your name, current school board status, if you are currently serving, and the district you are seeking to represent. And we will start with Ms. Cannon.
I would like to thank you and the League of Women Voters and the Association of University Women for allowing me to come here tonight. I am Joanne Cannon. I live in District 20. I've lived there for over 30 years. I spent most of my career teaching in District 20, and I retired and I own a store there, and I'm running for the District 20 school board seat. I feel that I would be a very good candidate because I have worked in that district and I see the poverty level that needs help. I would like to help change the failing schools. We have positive schools, winning schools, and we have, on the other end, failing schools. And we need to do something about that, and that is why I'm running. Thank you.
Mr. Garrett?
Good evening. My name is Todd Garrett. I'm a write-in candidate for the City of Charleston seat. First got interested in education when I was in high school. I was kicked out of high school. From there, my community and church gathered around me, said, Mr. Garrett, if you don't get serious about your education, you're not going to make anywhere in life without a solid education. From there, I went on to the Citadel, finished third in my class. I went from there to Harvard, got a master's in public policy, and then 9/11 happened, and I had a great opportunity to serve in the Marine Corps, which I'd been trying to do for a long time. I did 2 tours of platoon commander in Iraq. I'm still a company commander over here in North Charleston as a major in the Marine Reserves. In the commercial real estate world, where my wife and I moved back here to start a family and career, I've worked with companies from Berlin to Brazil, and they're looking at Charleston as a place to create jobs. It will be my focus as your school board chair to ensure that our kids are competitive for those jobs. They're an incredibly difficult and competitive environment, much more so than when any of us graduated from high school. I'm going to focus on preparing them to compete in a global environment, supporting the teachers in the classroom, and supporting the administration, but holding them accountable for results. I want to light a fire under the peninsula schools because there's no further time to waste on improving the failing schools on the peninsula. My name is Todd Garrett. Again, I'm a write-in candidate for the City of Charleston seat. Thank you for your support.
Mr. Lewis?
Thank you for this time. First of all, I want to give honor to my Heavenly Father for putting me in this position. I've been in this position for a long time. My name is Tony Lewis, and I'm running for the Charleston County Consolidated School Board downtown seat. As I can surely attest to what Mr. Garrett's saying, because I was out there for 20-something years working with young people. And thank God I have a vision. See, you have to have a vision before you can go forward. And I think I'm that vision for the downtown seat, because things I see, I can change things along with implementing with other colleagues to make things better for our kids. Because we have to make sure they're taken care of, because they're our future. It's not a white thing, not a black thing, not a Democrat, not a Republican, neither a zip code thing. It's a children thing, because we must give our kids the tools to run our world, because if we're going, they're coming. And I think I will be the best candidate for it, because I've been out there a while, like I said, coaching, teaching, mentoring, you name it. And I think I can be that advocate and that voice that downtown seat need to make things better for downtown schools, and work along with my other colleagues and get along with the Dr. McGinley and whoever's there, an administrator, because I want to see more communication and respect, because I don't see that. since I was outside, I've seen now I'm on Charleston County.
Thank you,
Charleston
Mr.
County-
Lewis. Thank you.
Oh, yes, ma'am.
Mr. Smith.
Good evening. My name is Bruce Smith. I'm running for the District 20 seat as a write-in candidate. My premise of my entire running for this board seat is I don't believe we're getting the results that we deserve from the school system and the results we are really paying for right now. I would suggest and endorse an entire forensic audit of both the administration and the capital fund. As I've understood, there is some, as Joe Biden would say, hanky-panky going on in there. There is just too much waste. If you look at some of the newest and best schools that we've built in the last 5 to 10 years, you'll see that Academic Magnet is 25% under-occupied, and that Burke High is 75% underutilized. It has a capacity of almost 1,800 students. It's a lot of vacant space and a very, very nice facility. I also would like to say there was waste, I think, in the incredibly surprising announcement, even though we've known about it for 50 years, that there is a seismic event coming. And the decision made so quickly and apparently urgently that they have to pick up 5 schools and remove them for 3 years. Made absolutely no sense. The dislocation was remarkable. What I would have suggested is just put at least Memminger and Buste into the facility at Burke.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Mr. Weinstein.
My name's Dr. Louis Weinstein. I am an academic physician. I've been a teacher for 35 years, have taught more than 3,000 medical students and 400 practicing physicians. My whole career has been in education. While I was chair of the medical school in Ohio, I did run for school board at the request of a group of citizens because we had a terribly dysfunctional school board. I was elected to the school board and eventually became president of the school board. And the schools where my grandchildren are now going are the schools that I helped bring to a level of excellence in the state of Ohio. Having spent my life taking care of the underserved patients, which is all I've ever done, I believe the only proven way to break the poverty cycle is education. I'm a product of public education, my wife is a product, our grandchildren and son are products, and I believe that the best investment we can make in our community is public education. I have the time to do it, I have the knowledge and the experience having been on the school board. I'm running for the downtown seat as a write-in candidate, and I thank you for your consideration.
Reverend Collins.
Thank you very much. My name is Reverend Chris Collins, and I pastor Healing Ministries here in North Charleston. I'm a product of Charleston County Schools right here in North Charleston, and my 3 children attend schools right here in North Charleston. And we're home of one of the best schools in the nation. We're also home of one of the lower performance schools in the nation. And so my priority is to close the achievement gap. But we have made some progress. We have reduced it some, but we still got a ways to go. And we're increasing reading. We have literacy reading academies beginning at 1st grade. We have 1st grade reading academy, 3rd grade, and 6th grade. And hopefully next year or so, we'll have an 8th grade reading academy is my goal. And we're not everywhere we want to be, but in the Vision 2016, we're working to make progress. We're working to educate every child the same. We're working to give teachers the resources and support they need. We're working to reach students at an early age in life that we can identify their needs by 1st grade. We can see where the weaknesses are. And so the goal is to catch kids early and to give them all the support and encouragement they need to further on their career. Because an educated child can succeed. And that's when we want a child that can come out of school and go into society and work and make a living, have a career and take care of his family. And that way he won't be in the penal system. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Ducker.
Good evening. My name is Tom Ducker, and I'm running for a seat on the North Charleston School Board. Thank you. I didn't just arrive here. I was born in Charleston, and I was reared in North Charleston. I went to Chicora High School. I'm a Citadel grad. And I joined the Air Force after the Citadel and served 26 years for that great Air Force and retired as a colonel. During that time, I had an opportunity to serve this country in Vietnam and Desert Storm. I was twice selected for command I served 2 tours in the Pentagon, and I have some hero medals, I guess is what I say, so I won't go into that. I was Vice President of Utilities Construction Company. I'm the father of 3 children who are all professionals, and I have grandchildren in Charleston County schools. I have 6 objectives, which I don't have time to share with you right now, but I will say that I'm reminded of the Condoleezza Rice recently said, your quality of your education should not be determined by your zip code. And that's what we have in this district, and that's why I'm running, to try to improve those failing schools, and I would like to further improve the successful schools. My name is Tom Ducker, and I'm running for North Charleston seat, and I appreciate your support. Thank you.
Mr. Copeland. I'm sorry, Mr. Barter. I'm sorry, thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is John Barter. I'm a candidate for a West Ashley seat. I want to thank the American Association of University Women and the League of Women Voters for sponsoring this forum tonight. I'm running for school board for 3 reasons. First, I believe strongly and deeply that every child deserves an excellent education. We're falling short of that today. We can and must improve for the benefit of our children and our community. Second, I'm running because I want to be a good steward of the $700 million that taxpayers entrust to us each year for capital and operating funds. I've been the chief financial officer of a major corporation. I continue to serve as chairman of audit committees for several boards. I know how to make sure money is being effectively spent, and I know how to search out inefficiencies. And third, I'm running because I've had the opportunity for the last 25 years to serve on some great boards, both for-profit and not-for-profit. And I've learned how to be an effective board member. I've learned how to hold management accountable for very high standards, but I've also learned how to support them so that we can move forward and get things done. And I've learned how to work with my fellow board members and with respect and understanding to reach agreement and move forward to get things done. This board has been known too long for its dysfunction. The people of this community deserve a board that will work together to advance education for our children. I want to be a part of that board and foster that culture within the board. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Copeland.
Yes, thank you very much. My name is Henry Copeland. I'm running also for West Ashley seat on the Charleston County School Board, and I certainly would appreciate your support. As an introduction, let me give you a little bit of background on me. First off, I also am a native Charlestonian. I am a product of the public school system in Charleston. I attended City of Charleston schools, and I'm the 4th generation of my family to do so. My family has 3 children who are currently in the public school system. So I am both aware of the historical resources that the school district has as well as its present needs. One of the things that I think has to be emphasized is the fact of accountability and public trust. We seem to have, as it's been pointed out, that for the past dozen years or so, we have faced a school board that has been lacking in communication not only with itself but also with the public. I have 3 main objectives. I would like to restore public trust. I would like to protect public access to equal access to the programs that Charleston County is certainly rich enough to offer all of its students. And finally, I want to build fiscal accountability. My background in governmental service, I've been a mayor of a small town, I've been a city council member, and I have also served on the District 20 Constituent Board. I am intimately familiar with governmental budgets. And one aspect of how they work is they don't quite work the same way as the private sector. But nevertheless, I wish to bring this talent to this county school board, and I look forward to your support. Again, Henry Copeland for the County School Board, West Ashley seat.
Thank you, Mr. Copeland. Mr. Miller?
Good evening. Good evening. My name is Michael Miller, and I'm also running for one of the West Ashley seats on the school board. And as we look to change the direction and the focus of our education system here in Charleston County, I believe we need to do a couple things. I believe we need to be able to address the issues facing our district, facing our students, teachers, parents, and principals. In order to do that, I believe we have to have a ground approach to the issues facing our students in our district. Personally, I am a business owner, a small business owner in west of the Ashley, but I also currently serve on 2 school improvement councils. I also serve on 2 PTAs, mentor, volunteer, and business partner to local schools. Since 2003, I've also provided over 20,000 students with free school supplies throughout our district. And in my ability, in my attempt to get to know the students in the schools in our district, I've come to learn a couple things. One, in order for our schools to be great, they have to have great leadership and a great staff. In order for our students to achieve at a very high level, they want to learn, but they need support in order to do that. And for our teachers are committed to teaching their students, but our teachers need the support of their staff in the district. They also need a board and a superintendent that wants to improve education for all children. Again, my name is Michael Miller, West Ashley School Board seat.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Mr. Ramick.
Hi, I'm Jim Ramick, and I'm also running in West Ashley. I'm running for two reasons. One, I think there's no higher moral obligation than the education of our children. But secondly, I really think I can make a difference. I was former executive vice president of Corning, where I ran a multi-billion-dollar operation, but I was also on a number of world-class boards of companies that were the best in their field. So I know what makes a good board work. And a lot of candidates will tell you what they are going to do. I'd like to share with you one short story about what I have done. I was elected a number of years ago as chairman of the board of the Heart and Vascular Hospital at MUSC. And what I did is I got with them and sat with the staff, and we together crafted a strategy about what we were going to do. And what we decided we wanted to be is one of the top 50 heart hospitals in the country, as measured by U.S. News and World Report. And this July, when the U.S. News and World Report came out, in fact, MUSC for the first time was named one of the 550 heart hospitals in the country. And I got a note from Ray Greenberg. Jim, many thanks to you for helping set the goal, keep us focused, supporting us, and holding us accountable. And I was gratified because that's what good boards do, and that's what we should be doing on this board, and I think we can do the same thing with a school board. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Thomas.
My name is Brian Thomas. I'm currently serving on the West Ashley board. I was appointed to fill an empty seat on that board in February. I've served for 6 months. I want to thank the League of Women Voters for holding this forum. You see, I believe that this election is one of the most important elections facing our local Charleston area this year, not solely because I'm in it, but because our board has been dysfunctional for quite some time. It's not a new thing. That dysfunction, that disruption, is what caused me to step up and take action. See, I moved to Charleston in 2000, immediately made it my home. I loved my community, and I spent time mentoring and reaching out to our youth. I became a coach. I coached for several years. In 2003, I had the opportunity to set up a mentorship and an outreach to Jenkins Orphanage, where I provided athletics and activities for the youth there. But my priorities changed in 2008 when I became a dad. Our concerns for education became very immediate to me. You see, I sat across the dinner table from our failing education system. And I began to pay attention to our school board, and I watched time and time again as I went to meetings, and teachers were never mentioned, and students were never mentioned, and parents were never mentioned. And to me, that was a problem. That was something that needed to be changed. So after time, I was appointed, like I said, in February. I've got 10 seconds. I want to say for 6 months, I've not been part of that disruption. I've tried to keep students first and tried to keep our teachers in mind. The lady flipping the card is making me nervous, but but thank you so much again. I'm Brian Thomas, and I hope you'll support me in November.
Thank you to all of our candidates. We will now move to questions from the audience. As I mentioned earlier, those have been screened to avoid duplication. Other than that, they're entirely random, so I'm going to pick them out. We will start with Mr. Garrett, who will have 60 seconds, and all other candidates will have 30 seconds, but everyone will get their 60 seconds worth of fame. So we'll rotate this, and Ms. Cannon, you'll be last, okay? All right, here we go. First question. Do you believe that literacy should be the district's #1 priority? Why or why not? Mr. Garrett.
Thank you. You know, I'm from a teacher of families, and my kids, my heart are in the public school system. Yes, literacy is our focus right now. My focus is to make sure the kids, when they graduate school, they walk across there, shake their principal's hand. They're leaving with the skills to compete in a global environment and not just a piece of paper. they're either leaving to get a job then, or they're leaving with the knowledge of, I'm going to another higher education system to be able to better myself to compete. The fact that literacy is a problem is representative of the fact that we haven't been doing our job up until this point. I want to refocus on literacy. We've also had just a report that writing skills are poor in the classroom, but I will continue to support the teachers in the classroom, support those principals, and support immediate change in the failing schools that we have, because they are a result of the statistics that we have with failing literacy. Thank you again.
Mr. Lewis.
Yes, I support literacy because we have to fight for our kids, so our kids can be out here, so they can become productive citizens instead of criminals. Because if we focus more on our kids' education, we have less criminals out there in the streets. And I truly focus my goal on trying to help produce more productive citizens. And with the implement of giving chance with these other board members, I will focus on that, make sure I have a vision.
Thank you very much. Mr. Smith.
Thank you. I do not believe that literacy should be the number one goal. I feel we're failing completely if you get out of grade 3 and you're not literate to the degree that you should be. What's happening is that the entire school system is suffering because of these inadequacies. Literacy at later grades may not be the most important thing right now, but there needs to be established a way that we can stream these people into literacy so they can keep up with and succeed and graduate.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Dr. Weinstein.
Literacy, in my opinion, is the key. It opens the world up to anybody who can read and who can't travel but can see what's going on. And there are many other things that you can use, tools of technology, that you can use to help for math and science. And as a scientist, if you can't read, you can't do anything else. Literacy is the key.
Reverend Collins.
Thank you very much. If a child can't read and write, what's the use of being in school? Not only should literacy be number one, but for Charleston County School District, literacy is number one. It's our goal, it's our vision, it's our focus, and we're spending millions of dollars to get these children reading and writing on that grade level. And not all of our children are behind. It's only a small percentage of our students that aren't making the mark in reading. It's not half the district, a small percentage.
Thank you. Mr. Ducker.
I do believe that literacy is our number one priority. I don't know why we would have schools if it wasn't for literacy. I know we have a 2016 program. That's finally, it's been a long time coming. I know we're going to spend a lot of money to do it, but if we can achieve it, I want to see the measurements. I want to make sure it's doing what they say it will do. And as a board member, I'll ensure those measurement tools are in place. Thank you.
Mr. Barter.
I agree that literacy is absolutely critical, and the data that always brings that home for me is the realization that if a child is not reading on par by 3rd grade, they're 10 times more likely to be a high school dropout, with all the pain that suggests. I applaud the district's effort in literacy academies. I think they're absolutely critical, but as a board member, I want to ask, what do we have to do to have all children ready to learn when they hit kindergarten, all children literate from the 1st grade on, rather than playing catch-up with literacy academies? Again, they're vital, they're critical, but there's a better way to approach it.
Mr. Copeland.
Yes, as a member of the District 20 Constituent Board, we were the ones who pushed the issue of literacy, the fact that we had children who were being brought up for expulsion who could not even read their own discipline record. It was horrifying, and it took us years to get the administration to recognize it. But once it did recognize the fact that you cannot operate a school system without a foundation of literacy. It's almost a cliche to say that reading is fundamental, but that goes without saying.
Thank you. Mr. Miller.
Of course, literacy is the foundation of our educational system. And I'm glad to see that Division 2016 has been able to finally adopt that mission and that purpose. But one thing we also have to remember, that if children are not grade ready, they should not be promoted to the next grade. That's why we have the academies to try to catch students up that have been pushed through the system. It is criminal to promote children knowing they're not able to read on grade level.
Mr. Ramick?
Yeah, certainly literacy is the key. It's the key to all the other disciplines. But also, as was mentioned, I think the focus on early education and getting up to grade level early is absolutely key because it's so difficult to catch up.
Thank you. Mr. Thomas?
Surprised to find out that literacy is now just becoming a goal for the Charleston County. It should have been a goal for the last 30 years. As far as I'm concerned, it's important for every subject that we have. And I believe that now that we know the facts and we know where we're at as a district, it is an important goal for the short term, but our long-term goal needs to be supplying these kids early in life with a foundation not only in literacy, but in math, science, reading, and writing.
Thank you very much. Your second question, and I'm sorry. Ms. Cannon, thank you. My bad.
Thank you. Literacy is the reason we have education. That's why we send children to school, to learn to read and write. A child who cannot read cannot have a bank account, will have trouble getting a job, will have trouble paying bills. That's the whole business of education. It's the cornerstone. It has to be first.
Thank you very much, Ms. Cannon. We'll begin this time with Mr. Lewis, and the question is, do you believe that all children are treated equally across the district? Please explain.
No, ma'am, because I think they focus more on zip code. Like I said again, kids in different areas get treated one way, and other kids in other areas get treated, instead of being treated straight across the board, we have less problems. We have less problems if everybody is treated equally, and that's what I'm trying to implement when I get on this board, that all these kids be treated equal, not because they came from a zip code, okay? That's my answer.
Thank you. Mr. Smith.
Excuse me. They're not being treated equally. It's really obvious. What we need to do is offer alternatives to the people that are not being treated equally. We need to at least pursue perhaps school choice more, and certainly charter schools, or anything that would actually allow the underperforming schools to perform a lot better. That's my point, is that the underachievers need more attention, which means it's not being very equal.
Thank you. Dr. Weinstein.
I do not believe that the children across the system are being treated equally, but I do not believe it's done with malice or intent. I think that's what some of the new school board members will do to try to improve the equal treatment so all of our children get the best they can.
Reverend Collins.
I don't see it as being treated equally or unequally. We have schools that are successful and schools that are at risk. But we have students that need more support and resources than other students. Do all those kids get what they need all the time? No, they don't. But the goal is to educate every child the same and give them all the same resources, but that does not always happen.
Mr. Ducker.
I think the fact that we have failing schools would indicate that all of the children aren't being treated equally. If I'm on the board, I'm going to fight for those schools, and I'm going to fight for the resources and the opportunity for those children that are in failing schools to improve their performance. I agree there should be other opportunities. I'm a fan of local control, and I believe charter schools have a role in that, and there are other innovative, what some people call incubators, out there that will...
Thank you very much, Mr. Ducker.
Thank you.
Mr. Barter.
By definition, all children are not receiving the same opportunity. In the 2011 report cards on the schools, we had 25 schools rated excellent. We had about 25 schools rated either below average or at risk, and the rest were in the muddy middle. We need to have an all-out effort in bringing all of our schools up to excellent standards. That's going to take a long time, and those schools educate 95% of our children. 5% are educated in charter schools, but we need to, while working on those schools, we need to embrace choice. We need to collaborate with those who want to start or convert to charter schools.
Thank you. Mr. Copeland.
No, I don't believe there's equity within the system, and I think that that's one of the problems about accountability. There are schools that are successful in Charleston County, and they do it with less. Charleston is a rich district. There is no excuse for us to have any failing schools, and we have proven certainly through the charter school examples and also experiments such as the Montessori programs that have been extremely successful in eliminating the at-risk and disparities between various student groups.
Thank you, Mr. Miller.
I believe the question we have to ask ourselves is, are we setting the same expectations for all children? I believe that we're not. And in doing so, we do the children and each school that they go and attend a disservice. As a good friend of mine always says, it's not a one-size-fits-all. We have to individualize the learning schools, the learning tools and support of each school to ensure that all children are granted the same opportunities to achieve academic success at a very high level.
Thank you. Mr. Ramick?
Well, I think it's obvious that all children aren't being treated equally, and I think in order to get all children up to where they need to be, we in fact do have to treat them unequal in a way, in that we have to put some of our best people, our best resources on the failing schools. So we need to treat them unequally in order to get them up to be equal. Thank you.
Mr. Thomas?
I don't think the children are being treated equally, but I actually don't think this is the fault of the district. I think that we have we have this mindset in America where we continually fund failing schools. The neighborhood school system is no longer working. We need to, if you want to close the achievement gap in this county, in this district, in this state, you do it by increasing options like charter schools, Magnus, Montessori's, and giving every child access to a better education.
Ms. Cannon?
Oh, I do not believe all children have the same opportunities. Some children come from Some children come from homes with books and with educated parents. Some children come from dismal backgrounds. We need to take every child as we get that child and improve that child. They need to have the same opportunities for an excellent education.
Thank you. Mr. Garrett?
No, once you move downtown, one of the first things that grasped our attention when we started a family was we're surrounded by failing schools. Until we've changed that downtown on the peninsula, we need to offer school choice. We need to encourage the charter schools that have been such an incredible success on the peninsula so that we can move forward and offer other options for the children who are left in those failing schools.
Thank you. Your third question. What experience and qualifications do you have to help the school board function as a cohesive, productive, governing board? And we will begin with Mr. Smith.
Thank you. Well, I've got a broad background in education. I've succeeded in spite of some of the bad teachers I've had. I've gone to I managed to make it out and go to Harvard and then followed it up with a Stanford degree as well. What I can do is I have an innate ability to actually force compromise upon people, to actually find a consensus. I also can dig people out of their little trenches when they get caught up on their personal interests and the minor details of things. I have a real desire to try and get this school board to vote 6-3, maybe even unanimous 9-0. I can't see that they could barely accommodate voting. That's the students are the most important product out of the entire school system, and the teachers are the most important asset.
Thank you. Dr. Weinstein?
In my academic experience, I was selected by the boards of 2 medical schools to chair 2 very large departments, and then was elected to the school board in Ohio, to a very dysfunctional board that became a functional board and turned our school system completely around so that we were considered a school board and a school system of excellence. That is the experience that I have.
Reverend Collins?
My experience of going through the school district myself, my brothers, my sisters, my children, having served on the school board for 4 years, seeing the needs of our students and teachers, and I believe I can be a good representative to give our teachers the resources, the funding, increased pay, a bigger paycheck, supplies for students, better buildings, and work for the community and try to work to keep the board on one accord to promote literacy and math, keep that #1 priority.
Thank you, Mr. Ducker.
Well, in the beginning, I outlined my my history, and especially in the military, and as a commander twice, I can assure you I had to deal with a lot of problems and use my art of persuasion and those skills, negotiating skills, to make those units that I was a commander the best units in our organization, and I did that. So I would say that I've been successful in working with diverse groups. Thank you.
Mr. Barter.
I've served on many for-profit boards, but I think what's most important here is what I've done for not-for-profit boards. In the years I've been in Charleston, 11 years on the board of Charleston Education Network, chaired it for 2 years. Charleston Promise Neighborhood, on the board for the 3 years it's been in existence, led its search committee for its new CEO. On the board of the Medical University of South Carolina Foundation, next chair of its investment committee. On the board of my college for 15 years, chaired it for 5 years. I've served on boards, and in almost every case, I've been asked to take on a leadership role.
Thank you. Mr. Copeland?
Yes, I have 30 years' experience as a real estate professional involved in brokering deals and building a consensus. 8 years, I've also served as an elected positions on City Council and also the constituent school board. This involves conducting meetings and being able to hear out other ideas and to also build consensus. I have experience in these areas, and I think that that can be brought to the county board in a way that it has not seen in the last dozen years, and I look forward to that opportunity.
Mr. Miller?
I currently serve as the chairperson of the Mary Ford Foundation. As we know, Mary Ford is an elementary school here in Charleston County that is doing some wonderful things within their schools. And serving on various boards as the Blue Ribbon Task Force, we recognize the issues facing our students and teachers. I believe the one thing that will bring the board together is a complete understanding of what the needs of the students and teachers are. I truly believe if the board understood the issues facing our district,
Thank you.
it would bring consensus.
Mr. Ramick?
Yeah, I've served on many boards, and some of them were JV boards, joint ventures with companies like Samsung and Siemens, and in countries like India, Korea, Japan, etc. These were not shrinking violets, and they had their own corporate goals, and we had to form consensus in order for us to form an effective operating system, and we were in all cases able to do it and have very productive organizations.
Thank you. Mr. Thomas?
I've served on this board for 6 months. I'm proud of my record on this board. I think that anybody who's watched would say that I've not been part of the fracture, I've not been part of the personal agendas on this board. I've been able to vote and agree with people on both sides of this fracture. I'm one of the only people who've been able to do that. And I've been able to do that because every decision that we make, I try to keep our children first, our parents first, and our teachers first.
Ms. Cannon?
I'm a retired middle school librarian. I've personally seen the despair children have when they cannot read and do their work. I was married to a school board member who was elected twice to the seat that I'm seeking. May I say, he was a nationally known parliamentarian. I learned from him. We can all have our own opinion, but if we cannot work together, we cannot achieve anything.
Thank you. Mr. Garrett?
I've taught on the college level. I'm from a family of teachers and a family of kids in the public schools. As a leader in the business world, nonprofit world, and I don't want to micromanage the district as I step up to lead here. I want to set the goals and set policy. That's a superintendent's job. And if she fails, we'll hold her accountable for that. But as your school board member, I will set policy and let the superintendent and the principals run their schools.
Thank you. Mr. Lewis?
Yes, I am a member of Concerned Citizen / Low Country. I am on District 20 board, and I'm the CEO of Save the Youth, and various other boards. But it's all about our kids with me. Nothing about Tony Lewis. It's all about our kids with me.
Thank you. Fourth question. Do you believe charter schools are a good choice? Why or why not? And we'll begin with Dr. Weinstein.
As some of my colleagues have said, I think that choice is appropriate. I think parents need to have the knowledge to make an informed choice. I think charter schools are appropriate. I don't think they're the only option. I think along with Montessori and other methods of education, we can do a better job than we're doing. And if charter schools turn out to be the best, then those are the ones we should foster the most. But I think we can make all these options available because every student is different and they all require a different approach.
Reverend Collins?
I do think charter schools are one of many options, not the only option. If our public schools provide everything students need, it wouldn't be much of a need for charter schools. But we have our options, like Montessori, and we have kids now starting school at early ages. Children can get in school less than 1 year old and get a head start on education. So we got to support whatever school that works for our children. So I support all schools that work in educating kids.
Mr. Decker?
I do support charter schools as an option. I think that it may not be appropriate in all cases, and there are other options that we can pursue to improve our performance in the district. I like the idea of charter schools because it is a local control. It brings in the community. And so I would support charter schools, and if they came, as a board member, if an applicant came for a charter school, I would probably support it. Thank you.
Mr. Barter, excuse me.
I think choice is critically important. Having spent a lifetime in business, I think competition makes everyone better. I think that we need to work collaboratively with our charter schools and support them, and I also think we need to be ready to learn from our charter schools. Charleston Math and Science, a school for 500 students, operates with a principal and one assistant principal. We would staff one of our other public schools, and the charter schools are our public schools. We would staff them much more heavily. Let's work together and figure out the best staffing model and learn from each other.
Mr. Copeland?
Absolutely, I do support charter schools. I'm one of the founding members of the Charleston Charter School for Math and Science. Two of my family's children attend that school, and they have also attended Orange Grove Charter Elementary. I believe that charter schools are an opportunity to experiment in terms of being able to teach lessons to the rest of the district on what may work. Yes, they may not apply in all situations, but at least it gives local control. They are parent-driven, and they offer an opportunity for us to learn from new ideas.
Mr. Miller?
I firmly believe that parents deserve a choice when it comes to their children's education. I believe they deserve an opportunity to decide what kind of environment, what kind of classroom size they would like to have when their children are educated. So I am a component for charter schools and school choice. I was told once that charter schools will revolutionize public education. I believe if that's the case, then let's make every school a charter school. If they're that successful, let's do that. But parents deserve a choice, and our children deserve better.
Mr. Ramick?
Yeah, I think we have to do what's best for our children and not get hung up in one ideology or another. I think choice is good. I think competition is good. It makes everybody better. I think we get innovative ideas from different approaches. So I think charter schools are good. On the other hand, right now we still have 95% of our schools that are traditional schools. We cannot take our eye off the ball of making our traditional schools excellent as well.
Mr. Thomas?
For the first year, my daughter attended a charter school this year. I'm not a fan of charter schools because my daughter attends there. My daughter attends there because I'm a fan of charter schools. I believe that choice is the most powerful weapon that parents have in their education of their child. Our board is a large, bulky, sizable district that has to make choices for 86 schools. A charter school has a board designed only to make choices for them. They're quicker, they're easier to adapt to their own needs, and I believe that's why they're the most effective schools that we have.
Thank you, Ms. Cannon.
I support offering parents choices for their children. One of these options, charter schools, they are public schools and therefore should be treated as public schools. Disparity in funding is a big concern, and I would work with legislators to try to equalize the funding.
Mr. Garrett?
Like it's been said up here, charter schools are one of the best options that you've got within our district. They offer local innovation and opportunity for locals to be involved, which is one of the biggest complaints that you hear throughout the district as you visit communities and neighborhoods, that the district is not responsive to their concerns. I support charters. I think that we should allow busing for students to charters so that each of them is treated equally to the other magnet schools in the district.
Mr. Lewis?
Well, I support charter school, but my thing is charter school is accessible to all the students. But, again, choice, because all parents don't fit all kids, okay? That's my question.
Mr. Smith?
I'm extremely supportive of charter schools. I was a founding member of Charleston Charter School for Math and Science as well. I've been delighted with their recent success. They have a racially and economically diverse a mix of students, and it is run with a surplus. They are a model for us to evaluate and try to imitate. The administration basically has outsourced its porters. Why doesn't it consider outsourcing its failing schools?
Our fifth question, and we'll begin with Reverend Collins. What do you see as the biggest challenge keeping the school board from being a more effective body?
That's a kind of funny question.
I don't write them, I just read them.
I'm not even sure I understand that question. But I'm going to try to make out the best I can. I guess what makes the school board divided is when all board members don't receive all information at the same time. If we have certain board members that have received documentation and others haven't received it, then at the meeting it's going to call for a lot of questions, a lot of discussion, a lot of inquiry, and we're going to be there a long time debating issues back and forth. So I guess access to information is what I say.
Mr. Ducker?
I think this board is ineffective primarily because it lacks vision. I think the board has given up its responsibility to be the governing body of the district. I would like to see it recover that. I'd like to see it develop a vision for the district that includes our objectives and goals, and then task or allow the superintendent to carry out those goals and objectives.
Mr. Barter?
I believe this is an extremely important election with 6 seats up for election. And I hope the voters will focus on the need to have board members that really understand how to function as board members, which means focusing on the big picture of strategy and similar kinds of policy issues. I think it means that we select people that, in knowing how to act as a board, help to shape the agenda. Often you hear the complaint that the management brings the agenda to the board. A board shapes its own agenda and provides that agenda to management. If we get the right people, the problems will solve themselves.
Would you rephrase the question? It wasn't clear.
What do you see as the biggest challenge keeping the school board from being a more effective body?
I think understanding its role as a governing body, understanding its roles and responsibilities to communicate with itself and with the public, and to communicate with the administration what its objectives are. Again, I think that the board is somewhat out of focus, and therefore has given the superintendent a position of where she is rudderless. So it's, again, a hit or miss, and I think that right now we need to go back and focus on exactly what the governing responsibilities are, overseeing the superintendent in terms of following through with the policies.
Mr. Miller?
I believe one of the biggest reasons the board has seemingly to be dysfunctional, or the biggest challenge facing the board is, unfortunately, there is a disconnect between board members and what goes on in our schools. There's a disconnect between the needs of the principals and the students, parents, and teachers and the board. I truly believe you cannot govern properly if you have a hands-off approach. You have to have boots on the ground, hands in the game, to fully understand the needs of our students and teachers. I really believe if we had that, we'd have a more effective board.
Mr. Ramick?
Yeah, I think one of the barriers to a more effective board is some of the members do not know what the role of a board is, and it's not to micromanage. It's to set policy, it's to talk about strategy, it's to support and help the superintendent and set goals and measures and hold them accountable. So they don't exactly know what their role is, they try to micromanage. And I think also some of them have other agendas other than what is the best for our kids.
Mr. Thomas?
I believe the dysfunction is certainly a large part of that, and I think that you solve that certainly by forums just like this so that the voters are able to make an educated decision. But I think another thing, and I disagree with my counterpart here, is the board needs to return to being what they're supposed to be, which we're supposed to support our taxpayers, we're supposed to support our teachers, our students, not our administration.
Ms. Cannon.
The biggest challenge in serving on boards is to establish goodwill among all members of the board to get along and work together. Members should follow the vote of the majority and be more concerned with the education of children rather than their own priorities.
Mr. Garrett?
We've done a lot of complaining about the problem, but we've got some wonderful schools within our district. We've got some wonderful teachers within our district, but it's not my job as a board member to select each of those teachers or to select those principals. I want to focus on setting the strategy, on setting the policy, and then letting the administration run it and ensure that we're achieving the goals that we as a board have set. Thank you.
Mr. Lewis?
I see the problem is communication and respect, because it goes a long way. When you communicate, that means you're communicating with everybody in the district, the board members, the superintendent, everybody on one accord. And you got a fine running oil machine. You'll have a better school system if everybody communicate and respect each other.
Mr. Smith?
The board's role is to obviously support the students and the community at large. I have found that the administration has been somewhat of a bully in terms of approaching both the board and the community, and I think the board needs to reestablish a relationship with the superintendent in that she works for them. They should come up with the ideas, and she should figure out how to implement them.
Dr. Weinstein?
Having attended meetings, I think the number one issue is what the famous soul singer Aretha Franklin said, is lack of RESPECT, respect.
Thank you very much. Our sixth question. How would you address overcrowding and large student populations at Mount Pleasant schools? There are over 7,000 students on Park West and Wando campus. And we will begin with Mr. Ducker.
Well, you have to look at why some of that overcrowding is occurring. The overcrowding is occurring in some respects due to we're evacuating our children out of schools in North Charleston, for one. Number two, we need a second high school in Mount Pleasant. I think that's would solve part of the problem. But I think that, it's, I would say maybe lack of planning would probably be a reason for the overcrowding. And I think that, again, it goes back to division of the board, and I think that's part of their responsibility to ensure that these kinds of things don't occur.
Mr. Barter?
I agree with Mr. Ducker that a partial solution, maybe a small part of the solution, is improving other schools so that not as many students want to move out of their district to go to school in Mount Pleasant. But part of it is we've got to build more schools, and we have a wonderful taxpayer-approved way of doing that with the 1-cent sales tax. If the taxpayers renew that, we will begin in 2014 to put together a plan for the next building program, and that should definitely include significant expansion in Mount Pleasant.
Mr. Copeland?
The reason for overcrowding, I think, is directly related to both an opportunity that parents have, and that is, I believe in parent choice. Parents are voting with their feet. Many of the schools in Mount Pleasant are perceived to be doing well, so as a result, people are going there. I also believe in fixing the schools where they are. I'm a strong supporter of the concept of neighborhood schools, but I would like us to at least get to a point of where we can make the neighborhood schools the first logical choice for parents. But I have to say one thing. We have a 20% vacancy rate in our existing schools.
Mr. Miller?
I agree. If there were more focus on our local community schools, we would not see such a high transfer rate through No Child Left Behind flooding our schools in Mount Pleasant. If there were a more concerted focus on local schools, Burke High School, Stahl High School, North Charleston High School, where we have schools that have more than 1,000 students less than their capacity. If the focus were on local schools producing the same results, we could fix the problem in Mount Pleasant schools.
Mr. Ramick?
I think I would basically agree with a lot of what I've heard. I mean, I think you fix the schools you have so you avoid flight, but But obviously, the growth is happening in Mount Pleasant, and I think you have to address that by putting new resources there as well.
Mr. Thomas.
Again, pretty much been said before, but I think that the simplest way to solve it is, again, increase your choice schools, give parents reasons to choose to get away from Wando. But also in the long term, as said, you have to focus on these neighborhood schools. You have to give Burke, you have to give North Charleston the same perception that Wando and Park West have been able to have.
Ms. Cannon.
As the population moves, there must the school district move. We had a loss of students in the downtown district in the 90s. Therefore, the school board lost a seat from downtown and it moved to Mount Pleasant, which gained the seat. If we have more students in Mount Pleasant, that's where we need to have more schools.
Mr. Garrett.
Flight to Wando High School, I attribute largely to the leadership of Lucy Beckham. She's done an incredible job in that school and one of the things that she's done, which I think should be replicated at more high schools, is that when each student comes in there as a freshman, they're given 1 of 15 focuses. They start from day one to focus on their career and what they're doing next. We do need a second high school in Mount Pleasant. The demographics demand it. So.
Mr. Lewis.
Well, I like to see it stay in the community, because if we stay in the community, I think it'd be better, because then you got everybody working together to help make the student a whole. And it needs to stay in the community, not take off and go somewhere else, because you take away from the kids, when the school where the kids live at. And it's jumping up a cost, because you then got to bus them in, or the parents got to take them, so I'd rather stay in the community.
Mr. Smith.
There are two reasons that I believe this is a problem. The lack of foresight, obviously, and the school choice that has actually been going on and overcrowding the entire system. What we need to do to abate the problem, first off, is to actually improve the schools from whence these people come so that they will actually opt into the system. And secondly, of course, we do need another high school, and we need better resources out there as well.
Dr. Weinstein.
When I was on the school board in Ohio, we had exactly the same problem, and in my platform, it was to improve this problem. We did raise a large tax revenue, and we built a new school that is now a school of excellence.
Reverend Collins.
When parents find a high school that's successful, they want their kids to attend there. So they flock that way. And Mount Pleasant being one of the fastest growing areas in South Carolina, it needs a second high school. And I strongly would support putting another high school there. But not only that, I'd like to see some of the same programs that we have in place at Wando, placed in North Charleston, downtown West Ashley, that the zones are all equal, that a child can get all the resources right there in their home school. I'd like to see that done.
Thank you. Our 7th question, how would you build on the community involvement that helped give input into Vision 2016? And we will begin with Mr. Barter.
That's your question? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think that one of the strengths of Vision 2016 was the tremendous involvement of communities and teachers in developing the goals of 2016. That needs to continue to be a very interactive process where we share results and share corrective actions that are undoubtedly going to be needed. In the first year, we made most of our objectives. We missed the objective for eighth grade math. So there needs to be an effort to say, how do we recover? How do we move forward? How do we get back on plan? And that needs to be shared with the community. But I think what was begun there is an important start, but it's not the conclusion of the process around community involvement. You know, the schools we run are the public schools, and we need to be engaged continually with the public and understanding what their expectations and their needs are for the schools. As I've traveled around, one of the things I've heard over and over again in many communities is we want to return to more opportunities for technical education. That's a matter of dialogue with the community. It's a matter of dialogue with employers to define exactly what that means and then decide as a school district how to implement it.
Thank you. Mr. Copeland?
I want to pick up on that note about the recommendation for vocational education and technical training. Concerning Vision 2016, it is a very vague plan, and I'm disappointed to see that it also does not have specific means in which to accomplish its goals. I attended many of the community meetings, and at least 1/3 of the people who were present were district employees. And it represented a problem as to whether or not this is fully being communicated to the community in terms of exactly what the objectives are. Until it overcomes its vagueness, that's the way it is.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Mr. Ramick?
Oh, you mean Mr. Miller?
I'm sorry.
I can
Yes,
let
Mr.
him go if
Miller.
you want. I was on the committee advisory part of the Vision 2016, and I think Mr. Copeland was being too generous. I believe almost 4/5 of the board of the community was part of CCSD board members. Although I believe the Vision of 2016 is a proper approach, but it is just the beginning. There's just the beginning. We have not touched the surface of what our students need, and we have not touched the surface on what the true vision for our district ought to be.
Mr. Ramick?
I think 2016 is a very bold vision. My concern is that I don't see a really good plan to implement it, a really good strategy. I think we've got too many initiatives, and we're not really focusing on the vital few. And I think if we do that, focus on the vital few, and if we really make 2016 happen, I think you'll get a lot of more community endorsement, a lot more community involvement in the future.
Mr. Thomas?
Well, I actually abstained from the vote when Vision 2016 came before the board because, as mentioned, it was pretty vague. There was no, it was a list of things that they wanted to do that really should have been our goal last year and the year before. I do think, though, that Vision 2016 is a good plan. It's a right first step. This district needs to make strides in becoming a world-class district, and I think Vision 2016 can be the first stride.
Ms. Cannon?
Could you repeat that question, please?
How would you build on the community involvement that helped give input into Vision 2016?
To reach the standards of excellence supported by the board, I would work to secure proper funding, to get the right programs in place to help educate children. I would work towards programs that encourage students to graduate, more vocational programs, more choices for children. And I think it's very important we work with children the first day we touch them and make sure.
Thank you, Ms. Cannon. Mr. Garrett?
2016 is our current plan, and I will support that fully so that we can achieve those goals. But moving forward, looking beyond 2016, my focus is economic growth, that we need to talk to all the stakeholders within the environment, see what are the needs of the global marketplace and employers out there. What do our kids need to be ready to do when they reach the global marketplace? And then speaking more in community groups, as most of us have been doing over the last several months, so that we get their involvement and parents' involvement.
Thank you. Mr. Lewis?
Well, I'm in touch with many community leaders and pastors, neighborhood president, city council, business owners, other civic groups. But I'd like to see it back into the grassroots with the community, and also build a relationship with the constituent board members, because that's your connection to the community.
Mr. Smith?
I believe the plan is too vague, and it's too little, and it's too late. The board needs to focus on creating a program with more immediate results and strive for success in a more timely fashion.
Dr. Weinstein?
To maintain community involvement with 2016, we need to improve communication, and we need to listen to the needs of the citizens who are our consumers. I'm an optimist, and I think this vision is moving in the right direction.
Reverend Collins?
What I would do to stay in Vision 2016 is to review what the vision really is to the public in a more sensible way. But part of 2016 is to improve MAP scores, decrease the achievement gap, improve reading scores, increase the graduation rate, and to stay in constant contact with the community, getting the input, feedback, and telling what the vision is. The Bible says, without a vision, people perish. So when we understand what the vision is, then we can focus our attention that direction.
Thank
It's all
you.
about improving.
Mr. Decker?
I think Vision 16 is probably a good start. It looks good in the pamphlets. I think it lacks definition. I'd like to see the plans, the specific plans and programs to achieve those goals that we're talking about in the brochures. I want to see the measurement goals, and I want all of that to be transparent to the parents and the public. I want them to understand what we're doing, and I want to get their feedback. And I think that will make for, that it will be a successful program if we do those things.
This is our 8th question, and we will begin with Mr. Copeland. What efforts would you put into recruiting and retaining quality teachers in every classroom in the district?
Well, first off, I have to mention that we don't have an evaluation system as it is. And we are talking about trying to identify good, high-quality teachers, as well as ordinary and average teachers, as well as low-performing teachers, and perhaps even people who should look for another profession. There is no system of evaluation as it now stands. First thing we need is an evaluation system that engages teachers. I think peer review is important. I also have heard the fact, again, to recruit teachers, and the reason why I'm saying this is they have to believe that the system is something that they can grow with. I also believe we have a lot of talent within the system that we have today, both in the administrative level as well as the teaching level and every other staff employee. But we don't have a means to identify them. And as a result of that, we are, as I said earlier, floundering. First off, we need to do that and promote from within, first of all.
Mr. Miller?
Being able to first identify what a good teacher is. How do we go about that? I think we're trying to develop that system now. I think it's been very difficult. Teachers feel that the way that they've been evaluated is unfair. In order to retain our teachers, I believe that teachers want to go to schools where they know they're going to be supported by the administration. If there's a great administrator, that administrator, if a great one, can motivate and inspire teachers not only to perform way beyond their own expectations, but also be able to reach students in a way that even those teachers weren't able to do.
Mr. Ramick?
I agree. I don't think we have a good evaluation system right now, and I've never seen a world-class organization that didn't have a world-class system of evaluating and rewarding and helping to develop people that need it. I also think that we don't have a good process in terms of trying to bring new teachers in. I think we have too many. We don't interview enough people for the job, and I don't think we do it in a timely manner. We lose good teachers to other districts.
Thank you. Mr. Thomas?
I believe that we pay our effective teachers far too little, and I believe we pay our ineffective teachers far too much. The way to do that, as has been mentioned, is we need to find a way to evaluate our teachers fairly. I have voted for that and supported that, and we'll continue. That way needs to be expedited. We need to reward our best teachers. We need to put them in places that are going to be most effective, and we need to encourage the growth of our teachers inside.
Ms. Cannon?
Teachers should be evaluated by an instrument that they have been exposed to and that they understand the whole process. Benchmarks should be put in place because it's harder to raise achievement in more difficult schools than it is in a magnet school. So we should have benchmarks in place so that we don't lose our best teachers because they're struggling with schools that are harder to work with.
Mr. Garrett?
To recruit and train better teachers, I think that we do need to increase pay for our better teachers. That we are losing teachers. There are teachers in my neighborhood say, well, I've taught for years at Dorchester 2 schools because they're paying me more for it. We need to offer opportunities for professional development. We need to evaluate the teachers in order to be able to reward the good ones, but also to be able to get rid of the bad ones, and not just to reshuffle them, but to get them out of the system so that we can create opportunities for other new teachers in the district.
Mr. Lewis?
My take on that is we need to go back to grassroots teachers. Because when you bring teachers in to teach kids and don't have their background, their culture, it's a problem. And I see it in these schools. Because some of them there just to get their grant paid off and out the door. So we got to come up with a better system. Because we're losing our kids to that.
Mr. Smith?
We definitely need to establish an evaluation system which particularly rewards the good teachers. I propose that we actually have reviews by administration, by fellow teachers, parents, as well as students in order to establish a grade of competence and success. But teachers are our most valuable assets, and it is a noble profession, and those who have lost their passion for this profession should step aside.
Dr. Weinstein.
As reported in today's paper, we have the best city in the United States to live in, and we should have our senior mentoring program for our master teachers who are to attract the junior teachers to help them in this most noble of professions.
Reverend Collins.
For more rigorous training, more professional development days. When I first came to the district, the contracts for the teachers wasn't written in the condition that you must perform and do a good job performing in your classroom. But now that's been changed. The whole teachers accountable. We're also using Teach for America to recruit some of the best teachers there are. Also, I would offer the top pay for teachers that can come in and turn schools around, turn classes around, to give them incentive pay and bonuses for the hard work they do.
Sorry, Mr. Ducker.
I believe teachers are like anyone else. They look at the job and they look at the environment and they decide whether they want to do that or not. And I think that the environment's part of it. The evaluation is an important part of this. But the teachers have to know that they can go in the classroom, because that's where they spend. That's where the rubber meets the road. They have to know they can be effective in the classroom. And that means that discipline in the classroom has to be good. That means they have to have the backing of the principals, and they have to have the backing of the administration. And if the teachers believe that they have that, and they're going to be rewarded for it, and they're going to get evaluated appropriately and fairly,
Mr. Barta.
you'll get the teachers to come.
A lot has been said about evaluation and reward, and it's difficult, but it can be done. I mentioned earlier I'm on the board of Charleston Promise Neighborhood, which is now 3 years old, working with 4 schools on the east side of the peninsula. We have developed with the teachers an evaluation system that they support. We have developed with the teachers a professional development program on which we will spend $200,000 this year. We have developed with the teachers a pay-for-performance system that they support. These things can be done, and they're important not just to recruiting great teachers, but to retaining great teachers.
This is our 9th question, and we will begin with Mr. Miller this time. The Yorktown on Stilts, also known as Sullivan's Island Elementary School, is a very controversial issue. Are you in favor of temporarily stopping construction of the new school to allow the people of Sullivan's Island to vote on a referendum? Why or why not?
As a district looks to build schools in their communities, I believe the community has an option and a duty to address the issues that will concern them the most. I believe the issues concerning communities the most would be the education of their children. But more importantly, sometimes in this case, the building in which their children will be educated. As we all know, there's been a lot of controversy about the building of that school. The community in Sullivan's Island would like a school of 350. The district wants 500 students capacity. I hope and pray that the community and the district will work together to reach a harmonious agreement in this decision. But we cannot forget about the children. It's not about the parents or about the district. It's about what environment will be best to educate our children. I believe if that's the focus of all parents and the district as we move forward, I will be willing to support any decision.
Mr. Ramick?
Yeah, I think some of the decisions are just rehashing things that already should have been decided, certainly. I think the size of the school, I don't see how we can be closing schools in impoverished areas because they're too small and not economic, and build a small school on James Island or on Sullivan's Island. So I think a 500 student school is sort of essential. Whether there is a question in my mind about this other land and is it best and highest use. We should
Ms.
study.
Cannon?
I've argued against the school. I voted against the school. I lost. The school board's made a decision on this. We're moving forward based on what the town of Sullivan's Island tells us how to proceed. As often said, I believe that this is a community issue. It needs to be solved in their community before we move forward. I do want to say that I believe this is a bigger issue, not Sullivan's Island only, but Buste, Burke, Stahl. We tend to build palaces, cathedrals. We've got this mentality that if we build it, they will learn. Bigger buildings do not teach kids. We need to reinvest that money in our teachers where it's most effective.
Thank you, Ms. Cannon.
I believe the community should have a strong say in the schools that serve their children. As for the size of Sullivan's Island School, I believe in community schools. I do not believe in busing elementary school children across rivers and putting them in places like little islands where they might be stuck in an emergency. Thank you.
Mr. Garrett?
Full disclosure, my family largely goes to Sullivan's Island Elementary School. I tried to get my kids in there. 7 of my nieces and nephews either did, do, or will go there. My sister-in-law teaches there, and I have been keenly aware of the discussions going on, and some of the biggest opponents go to church with me and sit beside me in the pew. And I am in favor of moving forward. I've listened to the community. I feel like the community is in favor of moving forward. We voted as a county to rebuild it, and we should keep that promise to that community.
Thank you. Mr. Lewis?
My take on that is leave it up to the community, because it's a community school. Whatever they want, they should get, not what a district want to give them.
Mr. Smith?
I concur completely. It should be a referendum for the locals and the inhabitants of the island to actually decide what should be done with the property and how it should be, size-wise, acceptable to them. Location-wise is up to them as well. It doesn't matter. It's a community issue, not a board issue.
Dr. Weinstein?
My perception is that this has been a communication issue, and as somebody who has sat on school board and faced exactly this issue, it's just a matter of getting all the parties together and coming to a consensus.
Reverend Collins?
Presently, Sullivan's Island Elementary School has about 375 kids already, and more waiting to get in. If we build a school at 300 capacity, which 75 kids do we put out of the school? Which parents do we refuse? Taxpayers have voted for the school, they're spending the money for it, and our job is to give them what they paid for to build the school.
Mr. Decker?
Well, whether you agree with building the school and the site and the size that it is now, or you prefer an alternate site, or you prefer a smaller school, I believe it is my position that the district should delay this construction until this referendum is done. I believe that if the majority of the folks on Sullivan's Island, the residents of Sullivan's Island, believe that the school should go as forward as is, then let's have the referendum and let's put it to bed.
Thank you, Mr. Barter.
Yes, so there's only one thing I'm sure of when it comes to Sullivan's Island School. That is, there is no solution that everybody on Sullivan's Island is going to agree with. And what we have is the situation that this has been discussed for 3 years. The town council has approved it. The school district has approved it. A tremendous number of people on Sullivan's Island support it. I think it's time to build a school and get back to thinking about educating the children.
Thank you.
As an experienced commercial real estate appraiser, there's absolutely no excuse for building a school like this on Front Beach. The cost to maintain it, the cost to operate it are going to be prohibitive. And eventually it will be a major financial liability to the people of South Carolina when the eventual storm that removes it hits it. The question is, it goes back to the failure of the school board itself to communicate initially with the community. They wanted a new roof, and instead they get a new Yorktown on stilts.
Thank you. We will begin our 10th question with Mr. Remick. And the question is, how would you address the budget challenge of providing quality education for our children in the 21st century while funding is still in the 20th century?
Well, I think we can argue about how we should fund our schools, but I think whatever system we come up with, that funding is going to be tight. Everybody is pinched these days, and I think what we need to do is make sure that we use every dollar that we get in the most effective way. That means on our building programs, that means when we look at how we staff our administration compared to the number of people in administration versus the number of people that are actually in the schools. So I think we need to focus on doing the job in a more cost-effective way and make our dollars go as far as we can.
Mr. Thomas?
I'd argue the point that we're still funding in the 20th century. Adjusted for inflation, we spend 3 times what we did on our children 3 years ago. We spend twice as much as any other industrial nation in the world. We rank 16th in education. You cannot buy a good education. It is not how much you spend, it is where you spend it. We need to, we're in this district, we are administration heavy. We spend too much money on building palaces and temples and schools. We need to take a serious look at where our money's going, where the taxpayers' money's going, and we need to step back and make a solid decision on where we should be spending it.
Thank you. Ms. Cannon?
I think this is a big challenge. I think the school district should start with a zero budget, and I think the case should be made every year for how money is spent, so that every penny is spent in the best possible manner.
Mr. Garrett?
We don't need higher debt or higher taxes. We've already loaded up the next generation with enough debt to last their lifetimes. We're going to have to work within the budget that we have. So I want to do that by focusing on the teachers in the classroom and not the administration.
Mr. Lewis?
Well, we have forgot about the South Carolina lottery, where plenty of our public school kids, parents put money into. So why don't we tap into their resources?
Mr. Smith?
I support a complete and exhaustive audit of both the board, as I mentioned, not the board, but the administration and the capital fund. We also definitely need to shrink our bloated bureaucracy in the administration. The number of children in the school have gone down in the last 15 years. I know it's on its way up a little bit, but we still have, as you say, a 20th century budget for the administration. I rest.
Dr. Weinstein?
The best return on investment, in my opinion, of any money we spend in the United States is on education. And although we have to be very careful because it's the consumer's money to spend it appropriately, if more money is needed and we can convince the community, then that's what we need.
Reverend Collins?
I think we are adequately funded. This year's budget is about $22 billion more than last year's budget. What I would do is seek to eliminate programs that have not proven themselves to be effective, that are not getting results, and cut back on administrative costs, do salary studies on those that are making over $100,000 a year, and see what we don't need, what can we consolidate. I think the money's there, though.
Mr. Ducker?
I agree that I think the budget is adequate at least through 2016. However, I would like the board to get involved in the budget. I would advocate a zero-based budgeting where every year those programs have to be justified, and they have to be, the administration would have to demonstrate that they're working, and those programs are not working, then we would eliminate them, and I think you'd find some money in those programs that are not working.
Thank you. Mr. Barter?
We spent approximately $309 million on operations in the district. Two things stand out. One, the first thing you do, any organization is make.
Thank you. First thing you do in any organization is to ensure you're spending your money on your highest priorities. Second thing is, if you read the press, they talk about the last 10 years as being the 10 years of global productivity. That didn't just happen. That happens because people focus on being more efficient every day in everything they do. We need to bring that culture to the school district.
Mr. Copeland?
In 2006, I wrote an op-ed piece that appeared in the Post and Courier calling for a forensic audit. We have had a small one in the past, which resulted in a $5 million savings on just our telecommunications system. I think that right now, having gone through the deep recession, the financial upsettings that have gone on in the last 4 or 5 years is now the reason why we need to be looking at exactly where we're spending our money and if we're spending it wisely.
Mr. Miller?
If we have adequate funding and we realize that shortfalls will come, we need to ensure a priority for our district. What's our first priority? Educate our students. What I believe to be our second priority is to make sure that our teachers are adequately making the salary that they need to provide the services that they are. I believe that money does not fix the problem, but we cannot have parents asked to bring reams of copy paper to school every day or on their list because our school's not adequately funded.
Thank you. This is our 11th question. We'll begin with Mr. Thomas. What are the 1 or 2 points of Vision 2016 that you most support and one that you disagree with?
I most support the step in literacy, as I said, for the short-term goal. I think that is our highest priority. And also reaching out to our parents. I think that is the parent participation is going to be vital to the success of our schools in the future. I think the thing I don't agree with is maybe not one point in particular, but the fact that the goals are so vague. There's no real plan to achieve these goals. I think that the people who have donated their time to helping them establish these goals would like to see a plan, would like to see how we plan to accomplish it, and then move past that after 2016.
Ms. Cannon?
Well, I think two things go hand in hand. We have to close the achievement gap. We have too many students who are in failing schools who cannot graduate. If we are able to close the gap where the people who are in the very low end, our poorest schools in the state or in this county, if we can close that gap, then we'll have more people graduating. I don't have a problem with this plan.
Mr. Garrett?
I would say that my agreement and disagreement are both on the same point. One is in closing the achievement gap. That should obviously be our goal, but I don't think it should be a race-based goal. We've got we've got kids who are failing miserably who of all races. It's a socioeconomic issue and not a race issue. That we should be addressing it as such and making sure that the poorest kids socioeconomically within our district we're focusing on them and improving them.
Mr. Lewis?
Well, I see literacy because all our kids, if we give all our kids the tools they need, we wouldn't have this problem. We give some what they need, then some what they don't need, and forget about the ones who need it. And if everything comes straight across the board, I think we have better public schools, successful graduate rate.
Mr. Smith?
In support, I definitely support literacy, and I certainly support the embracing of parent participation. What I dislike is a lack of specifics on how to achieve this successful goal.
Dr. Weinstein?
I clearly support the literacy, and I support the evaluation of the teachers. What I don't know and what I cannot determine is who's going to be held responsible when these goals are not met.
Reverend Collins?
I strongly support literacy. That's number one for me. And what I don't agree with is the low percentages of expected gain over the next few years. For example, a goal of 2% or 1%. I don't agree with low goals. I like high goals. And if we don't make it, at least we get half of the goal what we want, but not low goals, high goals.
Mr. Drucker?
Well, I think the positive thing about Vision 2016 is the fact that it does establish some goals. The problem I have with it, there's not a lot of specifics to go with those goals. And so until the administration steps forward and tells us how they're going to achieve the goals and what those measurement tools are, then I would have to say that, we have the opportunity to be looking at 2016 and saying, golly, we just didn't get it done. So I think we need to look at this program, look at Vision 2016 in terms of measurements.
Thank you, Mr. Barter.
Thank you.
Yes, I agree with a lot of what's been said. I think the presence of 2016 is wonderful. Having goals is great. It needs a lot more specificity about how the goals are going to be accomplished. I think my greatest concern with it is that it's a 2016 vision. I think we need a 2020 vision because I think it drives us to different actions if we look out further. And specifically, I think it drives us to a much greater focus on early childhood education. And that's going to be the key to our performance in 2020.
Mr. Copeland?
Summing up what most everyone has already said, in a vague sense, the Vision 2016 is, I think, it lacks substance. And some of its specific recommendations that are very, again, still vague, it has also left out some tools. For example, charter schools isn't even mentioned at all in the 2016 vision. So I think that, again, it is very short-sighted, lacks substance, and I go back to the board again. The board is responsible for what's in that plan.
Thank you, Mr. Miller.
Literacy and achievement gap are the two things that I believe go hand in hand. Also, the piece on teacher effectiveness I think is very important. But for Vision 2016, please understand the vision will only be effective and measured from children that are entering kindergarten and four-year-old kindergarten right now and in 4 years from now. I believe those are the metrics in which the Vision 2016 will be measured, and like others said, hopefully it will continue on to Vision 2020 and Vision 2024.
Thank you very much. This is our 12th and final question, and we'll begin with Ms. Cannon.
Excuse me, I think you missed somebody.
Did I miss you? I am not Martha Raddatz, am I?
Thank God.
I'm so sorry.
Although, in some senses, I agree with a lot of my colleagues here that literacy, achievement gap, teacher evaluations, all vital, I think. The big problem I have with it is we've got 27 initiatives, and no organization can rally behind, let's do these 27 things. It doesn't have focus. We need, what are the 3 or 4 key things that we're going to spend our resources on? Getting back to cost now, that means what aren't we going to do? So we got choices in order to make this happen.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ramick, and I apologize. We will now begin our 12th question with Ms. Cannon, and the 12th question and the final question, name the 3 most positive and productive accomplishments of the school board in the last 2 years.
Well, I think they allowed Dr. McGinley to continue on her way towards improving education. I think Dr. McGinley's doing as good a job as somebody could do. She's been there longest. That's about all I can say. Thank you.
Mr. Garrett.
So one is an increase in enrollment, which has been dropping since the 1960s. It has started again to increase, and that's a vote of confidence of parents in the public schools, which I attribute to them. Second would be the decision to give Charter School of Math and Science the building rent-free. That was the right thing. It's one of the best schools on the peninsula, and allowing them to use the river school was the right thing to do.
Mr. Lewis?
Well, the right thing was, I see that this district is, when they go in and transfer the kids, well, send the kids up on with this plan they had to revise the schools and fix the schools over. You know, and that was a pretty good plan because the buildings were failing. You know, that's all I saw. Okay?
Mr. Smith?
Can't really think of many. The only one is more than 2 years old, and that was the allowing of founding of the Charleston Charter School for Math and Science. I guess a corollary to that would be the approval of the budget for rehabbing the Rivers High School building.
Dr. Weinstein?
The 3 things that I would look at is the profound push for improving literacy, the recent push to improve writing skills, which is also part of communication, and as Mr. Garrett said, enrollment, because that suggests the consumer is seeing a good product that is now being developed.
Reverend Collins?
Several of the things that I find key in our accomplishments in the school board, first of all, be the establishment of the reading academies, first, third, sixth grade reading academies. I think those are top priority, they're noteworthy, and they are making results. We have tangible results being made yearly. Sometimes not as much as we want, but we're steady making gain, and that's going to have a big impact down the road to catch these children early. Then also we have early childhood education programs, pre-K, CD programs. A lot of you don't know that children can start school.
Thank you very much.
And Montessori program.
Mr. Decker?
Well, I think that obviously on the top of my list would be the creation of the 2016, the recognition that we do have to do something about literacy in the district. The second, I've got to tell you that, you know, your priorities are where you put your money, and we're putting a lot of money in buildings. So I think buildings would have to be on the list and I'm not necessarily agreeing with all the buildings, but I think improving the facilities is good. And then I would agree that the academies are probably a good idea. I still want to see the result. I know there has been some good reports.
Thank you very much. Mr. Barter?
Yeah, I think for all the deficiencies thank you. I think for all the deficiencies we discussed earlier, it's still positive that we have Vision 2016, and it's up to a new board to make it a much better plan than it is today, but it's a starting point. I think the second thing that we seem to all agree on is the focus on literacy. I'd like to see that now move from being literacy academies to a focus on having all of our children literate at grade 1 and maintaining it. And then third, I think the reduction in the number of failing schools, though 10 is still far too many, 10 is 10 too many, we have to recognize that we have reduced the
Mr.
number.
Copeland?
Yes, of the items that I see, first off, the fact that the board only recently has been able to push forward the idea of having an independent outside performance audit. It's only a start because it hasn't actually chosen a team to do that, but at least it's a start. I think there needs to be that audit. Second, under the enrollment, the inclusion of four-year-old kindergarten or CD programs, I think has been partly responsible for the enrollment growth, but I also think there's a little bit of misunderstanding. The school district took over Head Start. As a result, the overall enrollment growth is probably largely associated with charter schools.
Thank you very much. Mr. Miller?
Yes, I believe the literacy and achievement gap issues dealing with Vision 2016, I think, are vital to our district. And also, our pre-K and early Head Start programs that are now being implemented throughout our district, I believe if we're going to have a serious conversation and a serious approach to literacy and having student effectiveness, we have to address early childhood education.
Mr. Ramick?
I think we have made some progress in terms of student performance, although not as much as would have liked. I think the Literacy Academy has been a very important innovation. And the other thing is I think there have been some successful turnarounds. Gap, for instance, is one of them where you get a situation that has all the bad demographics and it's been proved that they can turn around, and I think we need to build on that.
Mr. Thomas?
To repeat what just about everyone else has said, I think Vision 2016 is a great first step, and it's the right choice to make right now. Another thing I think that we've done right is this year as a board we voted to continue to provide free transportation to children who chose to attend choice schools. I think that's important. I do not believe parents should be punished to seek out a better education for their child.
Thank you very much. If I could just remind you, when you finish speaking, please turn your microphone off, because if we get more than 3, apparently nobody hears anything. I'd like to thank all of our candidates and all of you in the audience who submitted such wonderful questions. What am I leaving out? Oh, we're going to do that. That's the next thing. I also would like to thank our timekeeper, our president, Julie Hussey, who has done an outstanding job. And now we will have closing statements from all of our candidates. You will have 60 seconds to make a closing statement, and we will start in reverse order from the way we began, and we will start with Mr. Thomas.
I decided a year ago that I was going to run for school board. I did so after months hesitation, seeing what I had seen down at 75 Calhoun. I thought when I announced it that I had a whole year, and when Miss Mary Ann Taylor resigned, things sped up. And so I get to stand here today and not tell you what I want to do, but what I have done. See, I was chosen by our legislative delegation in this very room to fill that empty seat, and I've served for 6 months. And a reporter took me out back that door. I remember how nervous I was, and she asked me, the first question she asked me, our board is fractured. Which side of that fracture will you be on? And I said specifically, I will not be on either side. I am going to side with the students each and every time. And for 6 months, I've done that. And if reelected in November, I will continue to do that. As a parent, I believe that the students are absolutely the most important things we have in Charleston County. And I want to continue supporting them. And I hope you'll support me in doing that. Thank you.
Mr. Ramick.
I think I can really help make a difference here. I've done it on other boards, and the analysis I've done says that this board is also amenable to the same kinds of approaches of really looking at the strategy. really looking at what you're trying to accomplish, focusing on a certain number of things, deciding what you're not going to do, and measures and accountability. And it's basic 101. It's management 101, and that's what we haven't had here. And I think getting some board members that know how to do that, know how to deal with respect with people, but also hold them accountable is what we need. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Miller.
First of all, I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters and its sponsors for putting on this event, giving us candidates an opportunity to speak to you today. As our district moves forward, I believe that our schools should mirror our great city. As one candidate said earlier, we're one of the best cities in the country, but yet our school system does not reflect that at all. I believe in order for us to do that, we need to continue the vision of 2016, but also I believe we need to raise expectations as we move forward. Expectations on how our board conducts themselves in meetings as we look to make our district better, setting high expectations for our students and parents, teachers alike. Also, we ought to make sure and emphasize that in order for those gains to be made, support has to be proper support has to be in place for all components to be viable and for our system to be as best it can. And finally, I believe we have to be responsible. As board members, you always hear about the fractured board. Our board has to be more responsible. Thank you.
Mr. Copeland.
Yes, again, thanks to our host. I feel like I've just been through a speed dating exercise.
Me too.
Because there are too many issues for us to have to address in such a short setting. I mean, I could talk about what is the future of Lincoln High School? What about the vacancies in our highly on-demand magnet schools while waiting lists still exist? 3 hours per day on a bus for some children to get to their school. Why are the Boeing employees locating in Berkeley and Dorchester counties? There are all kinds of questions that need to be answered, but I do believe this. I have the experience of working to develop a consensus. Yes, I have been called a person who raises serious questions as a member of the public. But I think as a member of a board, I have built consensuses before, and I am very proud to have been a member of the District 20 constituent board, where we confronted as a group some of the issues primarily centering around literacy. We were so effective with it that our power got stripped. So I would say the fact that we got that kind of a response shows that we can do it. I would like this board to work together, and I think I can help it do it.
Mr. Barter.
At the beginning, I thanked the two sponsoring organizations. Now I'd like to thank our moderator and our timekeeper. I think you've both done a phenomenal job. This is a really important election. That with 6 seats up, this is a chance for the voters to reshape this board. And I would like to ask for your support as you reshape it, because here is what I would hope to do. I would hope to be a part of a board that works together, a board that makes every decision in terms of what is best for the children, a board that understands the importance of supporting teachers and principals who are on the front line of educating, and those are tough jobs. I would like to be a part of a board that understands how to both challenge an administration and support an administration. You cannot accomplish anything if all you're trying to do is tear people down. And finally, I would like to be a part of a board that focuses on the important few things of strategy and other critical decisions, and let the district manage the district.
Thank you. Mr. Ducker.
I believe that we have a problem in the board, in the system, in the district with the process. And I believe the board is part of that process, and it's broken. And I believe the solution to the problem is to raise the board, for the board to regain its position as the governing body of the district. And then I would like to see the board members, and I truly believe if we did that, then the board would not be focused on a vision rather than focus on the bickering. So I would like to see the board sit at a table and develop goals and objectives for the district to improve the education process here. And I think we could get consensus on the board to do those things. And then it would be a matter of handing it to the superintendent and say, these are your goals and objectives. Now, to come back with plans and programs and a budget to do it. And I think that's the solution to our problem.
Reverend Collins.
Thank you very much. This is my 4th year serving as a servant on Charleston County School Board. I represent North Charleston. And it's kind of strange to me. I didn't know we had a dysfunctional board. I've been on there 4 years. I've never seen it. We have approved more things than previous boards in the past have. Everything doesn't get approved, but we have made tremendous progress. And we all get along. We all like each other. There are no enemies on the board. So I don't know where this idea of a dysfunctional board came from. When I got on the board several years ago, expulsions were at 150 a year for students. It's down to 43 now per year. 43 students being expelled out of 40-some thousand. Suspensions are down lower. Violence has decreased. Crime has decreased. We have more alternative school choices and school settings for kids. And we have Apex, Summit, Twilight. We're now seeking better teachers, and we're seeking to hire the best principals. And the board, as a governing body, the board hires all principals. Some of the new people don't know that, but the board
Thank you very
is
much.
responsible for all principals.
Dr. Weinstein.
I'm proud and excited to live what I consider to be the best city in the United States, having lived in many different states and several foreign countries. My whole life has been in public service, and no matter what happens with this election, I will continue to do that. What I'm amazed at is the efforts that the citizens would take to do a write-in campaign, because somebody is going to have to be elected from downtown, and it requires a write-in. I have the time, I have the energy, the enthusiasm, the experience, and the knowledge. And I would appreciate anybody's support and be glad to talk to anybody about my candidacy as a write-in for downtown. Thank you all very much for coming.
Mr. Smith.
I know that we certainly can do better than we are now with the money that we spend. I think that is one problem we must solve ASAP. Second, I believe that we must determine and figure out a way to determine who our best teachers are and reward them accordingly. Buildings don't teach our students. And thirdly, I strongly encourage more alternatives for children of any failing school. Thank you.
Mr. Lewis.
Well, why I'm seeking this office, to be a voice for those who feel that no one listens, sums it up, the ears, eyes, and voice for the folks who don't feel like that's the children, the parents, the constituent, and the staff. And why I say that? Because I ran this board here, do this. I lost my son back in 2009 because someone killed him educationally at an early age. That's why I'm fighting for all these other kids. So I wouldn't know other parents have to experience what I went through. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing. I owe it to him, and that's why I'm fighting hard. I've been in this community for a long 30 years, coaching and working with kids, and I will continue on the fight for our kids. They're all my babies, all 45,000.
Mr. Garrett.
Thank you all for being here tonight and for your attention. You could be many other places doing something much more interesting, but I appreciate your attention, and thank you to the League of Women Voters. My name is Todd Garrett, and I'm running for the City of Charleston seat for the school board because I'm a father of parents in public schools, and I'm surrounded by failing schools. If those schools are not good enough for my kids, then they're not good enough for anybody. We need somebody with a renewed fire to change the failing schools downtown. If you think that it's not dysfunctional, and if you think that everything's going right, then I'm definitely not your candidate for the City of Charleston seat. I want to change the tone on the board to refocus on the kids in the classroom and preparing them for the global workforce. I work to support the teachers in the classroom. I will support the administration, but hold them accountable for the results that we set as a board. Again, thank you very much for your attention, and I would ask you to write in Todd Garrett for the City of Charleston seat. Thank you.
Ms. Cannon.
I am pro-literacy, pro-choice for parents. I want to hire and keep the best teachers we can. I will support our teachers. I've been on the firing line myself. I am adamantly against raising taxes. I believe in zero-based budgets to get the best use out of our money. I want programs that ensure success by tracking students from pre-K on. I want very much to serve our students and community to provide excellent education for all of our students, all of them. I will do whatever it takes. I hope that you will write my name in, Joanne Cannon, on November 6th for District 20. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think it would be appropriate at this time to give all of our candidates a round of applause. On November the 6th, all Charleston voters will vote for candidates for downtown, North Charleston, and West Ashley areas to represent them on the Charleston County Consolidated School Board. We encourage you to study the issues carefully, learn about the positions of each candidate, and to vote for the candidates of your choice. The League's website, and you might want to write this down, LWVCharleston.org, has nonpartisan election information, including candidate listings and information on the proposed constitutional amendment. You need to be sure to have your say by casting your ballot, because without your vote, your voice will not be heard. I want to thank the candidates for the Charleston County Consolidated School Board for their interesting and lively comments. I want to thank the audience, as I did a moment ago, for your interesting and very lively questions. I would also like to thank one more person who is really responsible for all of our candidate forums. She's the director for voter services for the League of Women Voters, and you would not believe how much attention and detail she has put into this forum and to all of the other forums that she's responsible for. Joan Dean. A reminder again that all of the candidates for the downtown area are write-in candidates, and you will need, as voters, to enter the name of your choice. And also just a reminder that incumbent and school board chair Chris Frazier is unopposed for a 2-year seat in West Ashley. We very much appreciate your being here with us tonight. We want to thank you so much. Thanks again to North Charleston for the facility and for the assistance with the taping, to Comcast, to our partner organization, the American Association of University Women. And good night to all.